is a really cool one. It hasn't actually been reported. This is like another one that I saw on Twitter, right? So this has a lot of video to go with it, right? So this is an indie developer using their engine to run original PlayStation games. To basically
Wow.
not emulate them, but to actually run them natively in the engine.
Oh.
And so, so if you have a look at the tweet, it's like Tim saw it, who's the head of a studio that's working on this game called Last Night. It's actually been in development for like, I don't know, like 8-9 years. And it's just like a really cool 2.5D, like pixel art, but 3D, really cool lighting, cyberpunky type of visuals. So like it's a fantastic looking game, and I really want it to come out sometime soon. But anyway, so he posted to basically say, he's not happy with the state of game preservation, and that when people developers are kind of like remastering games, there was that Metal Gear Solid remaster that we talked about recently,
Yes.
where modders kind of like fixed because it was just like a lazy port, just upscaled, capped at like whatever FPS, whatever the case is. So basically, the engine that him and his small team have developed for their game, right? So they're basically injecting or like putting in original PlayStation games. Now, the original PlayStation games looked a very specific way. There was like texture warping. There was like the way it handled like 3D objects, the lower resolution, the way textures were. It's like very different to how PCs or modern game engines work, right? So basically what he's done with the engine, or what him and the team have done, is that they've taken this engine that's capable of all these like modern things and just downgraded or turned off, disabled features to be able to make it look like an original PlayStation game. So then if you see like in the videos of like Metal Gear Solid, it's like a backwards technique.
Yeah.
You see like, and then he switches between like the helicopter footage of like old and new. It goes from like old visuals to 4K 60 FPS with like correct color as well, like matching one-to-one color accuracy.
Wow.
So this is like one of the most, and then he shows this other demo that because it's downgrade, like going backwards the engine, like he can just turn on like things like atmospheric, volumetric, wind and fog, and just like turn them on because that exists in their engine for like additional features. And then you got like full control of the camera zooming in. Like it's just like a flex to show that this technology
is here.
Is that, yeah, and like where it gets interesting is that he basically says that he is like shopping this around or like talking to people. Like if he's talking to like Sony, like because Sony have like their Game Pass service, right, which has original PlayStation 1 games. Like if they just run those games on this engine, they would look incredible. So because what it does is like it maintains the look of the old games, like you see in Metal Gear Solid, but it just presents it in 4K and widescreen. But then you can just like turn features on and off like easily. So it's basically like
phenomenal.
an engine that has been repurposed to remaster games, but to ensure that they're accurate looking and that they actually run fast now. But they still look, and you can actually do things like add post-processing in terms of like more advanced lighting, improve the shaders, but without actually affecting the original game. So you're not actually remastering the game you're not making the game. So I guess the best way to describe it is that the old game isn't repurposed for the modern remastered engine, right? It is the engine is repurposed to the game.
Yeah, that's way better.
The engine can run the game, right? But then because this engine is so powerful, you can go, I can turn these things on. So like it can exist at every step of the way, so to speak.
That's way better.
I saw it and I'm like, wow, like it looks like a pretty impressive little demo.
It honestly seems like a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's so many original classic like PlayStation games, like obviously Metal Gear Solids, but all the early like Crash and things like that, and Resident Evils and
because I totally get like as a RuneScape player, a 2007 RuneScape player, I love, and the 100,000 plus people that are playing the game still, we love the retro look of that game, like the classic blockiness. But what Jagex has done so well is they've given gamers the option to download HD plugins. Like if you want plugins on your client, it's all client sided, so you can just get the plugin, go HD. Sure.
Yeah.
And you can turn down, like, there is even options for like how many CPU cores you want to dedicate to your game. Do you want shadows?
Yeah.
Turn them on, turn them off. If you want to play the game as it was in 2007, go for it. It's nothing stopping you, and you won't be at any disadvantages, nor will you have any advantages if you play in HD. There's draw distance, which is a big aspect in that game because you can, some spells you can cast extremely far, but there's draw distance limiting across the entire thing. So yeah, you can zoom out as far as you like, and your guy's like tiny little small thing, but you can't see further than someone that is playing with just like, you know, in a browser.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's kind of like, it's a similar situation where, it's basically you can turn these things on and off. Like developers will be able to, or whatever the case, or even like Sony. Like, so this is why I think Sony should like either license this technology or buy it outright, whatever the case is, and then just use it to bring their original PlayStation games to their digital streaming service, and then bring that digital streaming service like Microsoft has to the PC space as well, and then have an option for people to legally have access to these classic games that will be accurately remastered, where you can actually play them in their original visuals. But then you can turn on these effects or have the options to have like maybe 3 different versions: widescreen tick, upgraded lighting tick, atmospheric effects tick. You know, whatever developers want to do or whatever Sony wants to do in terms of like what they're going to bring to the game.
Yeah, and if it comes to it where, you know, we say they do what we're saying, adopt this technology, and, you know, this is too many gamers, but 1 million people are playing the first Crash Bandicoot, like the PS1.
Yep.
That might be an indicator for Sony. Okay, let's ask these, I don't know, they'll probably never do this either, but ask, hey, do you want a full remaster, like a Resident Evil remaster level of this game? And then they can go do that, where they, you know, sit down and every single texture
like remake
they remake the whole thing. But like doing this, I think is best of both worlds, because you'll get the retro gamers that want to play their game in the retro graphics. And you get gamers that want a little bit more razzle dazzle, like, you know, okay, some games where it's like very rough, like even visually to look at, you can just turn it up a little bit, and, you know, you got a bit more volumetric lighting, you've got a bit more, like in this video here, you've got a bit more mist, and then it's enough for me to get through the game now.
Definitely.
No, that's awesome. What a good find, man. That's great. Sony.
Yeah, no, it's like, I mean, I love like, you know, retro gaming and like, you know, emulation, whatever you have access to, or remasters or remakes, and they're always exciting. But like, this is the sort of technology that you want to see, like because like game preservation is always going to be like a question of, you know, what's going to happen to all these games.